You are listening to a Clarkesworld Magazine podcast with your host and narrator, Kate Baker. Greetings, Clarkesworld citizens. I hope this podcast finds you well. It's our last story from March. I hope that you've enjoyed the stories we've brought to you this month. If you have, please consider going to patreon.com/Clarkesworld to see how you can donate $1 a month or more to help us keep going and bringing you these stories, these podcasts, our art, our nonfiction. Every little bit helps. And to those of you who are already subscribing or donating, thank you so much. Our story is titled, Love is a Process of Unbecoming, and is by Jonathan Kincade. Jonathan Kincade is a scholar, teacher, and storytelling nerd. His previous work appears or is forthcoming in Anathema, Spec from the Margins, Faya, Magazine of Black Speculative Fiction, and Uncharted Magazine. He holds a PhD in English from UCLA with a focus on narrative theory and is a graduate of Clarion West 2022. You can also find him at his website, jkincade.com. So, my dear listener, I hope you can sit back, relax, and let me tell you a story. One, ingestion. Unknown sensations trigger unknown reactions, leading to instinctive states. They have names: hunger, sadness, fear. Others lurk beneath cognitive lineaments, but none drive like the hunger reignited by its ingestion of this organism. The host knows me as Negleria fowleri, but this organism, not yet an I, does not even know itself. Extant but unable to show a self within the world. No possession of being. Flash awake in the dark while a cluster gathers ahead of this organism. Long, stringy, buzzing, crackling, blue and white and innumerable. The host calls this delicious morsel gray matter. And the first sucking, pulsing, delicious nibble creates an ache in what the considers the projector to the self. It threatens to split the cranium, to widen the slit opened by blunt force trauma induced by slipping on rocks. Probably infected, flashes of hunger, excavated hunger follow. Same as the one ringing through the body's hollow stomach, along with the sensation something is stalking in the dark cave. Try the flashlight, but it doesn't turn on. Cracked like the skull, seeping sticky wetness. Whirl about, achy appendages splashing in water and flailing in human air. Nothing there. Of course not. Would make no sense. Nothing but microorganisms and andesite, slick with the ages. Prehistoric darkness. Call out for someone and only receive a warped echo prompting a shudder. Alarm reverberates along with the rhythmic thump of the hydrophilic flesh defining life. Then suck through the fleshy gash and grope for hope. Turn to reason. What are these anomalous drives? How do they function? To what end? Nothing animates like hunger. Orient the body upstream and use the burrowing, slithering river as a guide forward while feeling this organism's pursuit of comprehension through consumption. Glance around the dark, unsure whether the sensation is fed through internal or external stimulus. Grating at senses far beyond the limited faculties it believes to possess. Not understanding this organism is here. Wriggling, flailing, subsonic vibrations rattle the gray matter, flagellate in a way that mimics the strange shapes made by the sound projecting gash that continues to emit a low whine. If not for the sensation of becoming prey, presence would be elating, preserving. Instead, the nervous system lights up with dread, and each crackling cluster degrades while this organism squeezes every bit of blossoming self into the empty spaces made by digestive progress. Run through the thick water on weakened limbs. Don't get far before a familiar figure rises from the water, prompts the body to halt. The diminutive, recognizable image would comfort if not for the unfamiliar surroundings. Small but similar in shape to the body that ingested this organism. visible even without the blinding rays necessary for those orbs to perceive the world. Those are unnecessary for any parent to know that which came from them. Offspring. Daughter. Knowing the image is a hallucination does not make it less impactful, as something called love floats across the gray matter. Longing. For the first time, this organism understands a drive other than hunger, but only because it is still there. Love means craving and consuming until the body is full and nothing remains. Skid to a stop, sending aches through weary bones, and open the ravenous gash ready to blow hot air and sound, communicate an appetite for the child's presence, reach out for the image and find nothing but emptiness, the concave hunger reclining atop bodily need, echoing back and forth until it is unclear which belongs to this organism. 2. Consumption. Consumption brings this organism closer to understanding the body that has ingested it. It refers to itself as human, lord of the zoological, designated exterior component of a closed system. The absence of blinding rays makes it difficult to determine how many hours have crawled by like dark eons pooling around the body. Ever since the gray matter conjured the image of offspring, the human hurdles through wasted, suprachiasmatic time and its numerated attempts to grasp at continued sequence and dynamic fluctuation, slicing being into discrete chunks for consumption. Now slips into was, and will falls back into the now, which was, growth and diminishment and growth, an agonizing fabrication. Every so often, the ghost residing in the body's gray matter arrives at the thought, this cave will be its tomb. A glimmer in the dark causes the rhythmic thump to quicken. It vibrates the human's core until it's all-encompassing. Hurry toward it, the appendage of an appendage gliding across the rough rock wall. It flickers as the human nears it, as if calling to it alone. Stumble from the cave and into a built environment. Another human sits at something called a table, a surface made to ease deglutition by positioning as much sustenance as possible near the face gash. Even staring down at its plate, this being differs from the reflexive image carried by the ghost in its body. Softer features, a more rounded face that does not possess fur. The host takes a seat and the other human looks up in greeting. They point faces at one another, and strange wheezes and clicks escape the gashes, mouths of each human. Hey. Hey. Then the humans consume in silence appendages of the appendages, fingers, hands, grasping tools. It's its use to convey sustenance to the mouths. Why not simply consume? Something creeps through the host's body, an itch along the flesh, the sense of being preyed upon. Instinct, driven by anomalous drive, leaps once more, and the mouth opens to speak. I am going on a field survey in a few days. The other human heaves part of itself up and down, and the movement prompts further affect from the host. Taste or distaste, hatred. Images flash across the host's consciousness, all of them centered on violent acts that devour the other human as it screams for mercy. Is this love? I'm doing this for our daughter, the host shouts at the other human across the table. History uncoils within it, the interactions with its mate like some slithering thing that had been wound up. Its drive to procreate was once suffused by nesting desire, but that has evolved into something different, toxic. It tells itself there is honor remaining in a falling cycle. Honor, an inedible notion that leaves the belly hollow and the gray matter swollen with practiced satisfaction. The soft mate rises from the table with a guttural sound. It turns and stalks away into the cavernous dark, feet sloshing in the water. Only then does the host begin to ask questions regarding the nature of its perception. It deems these experiences hallucinations, not understanding that it, too, is an aberration. Not understanding that it, too, is an aberrant flight of fancy. How did here arrive? Where is here? The image fades, gives way to the comfort of the buoyant dark as the cranial seam, doorway to the self, still half open, flashes across the host's consciousness once more. It considers digging through the broken and bruised flesh leading to its being, similar to carving something known as a grapefruit, similar to the way this organism scoops the gray matter for sustenance, the self from self. Then comes more tapping, a knock at the door. Another human different from the mate pokes its head in. This one seems afraid. The host, apprehensive. The host glances around the office, confused about how this arrival was triggered. Its thoughts are interrupted when the human at the door utters something this organism uncomprehendingly understands. They're expecting you. The host imagines rising to follow this beta human, and itches slink through a pack of sales representatives, gabbing their face gashes on something called a phone with doctors and pharmacists, the non-imaginary humans residing somewhere on the other side, imperceptible to anything but the vibration receivers mounted to either side of their self-projectors, going on and on about their most recent under par and how much their offspring must have consumed since they last spoke, and could they interest them in our company's now pancreatic cancer medication? An elevator down, down through the research labs with cages of squealing rats and howling monkeys beyond the transparent lab walls, behind which a man in a clean room suit and goggles clamps his hands on a rabbit as another jabs it with a syringe of clear liquid. The images flash by faster than this organism can comprehend, no control over their trajectory. The host is also helpless, recognizing the moment as an experience of an experience, an immutable facsimile resulting from the unknown currents that push and pull the ghost and the gray matter to different points in time, regardless of when the body resides. The process is reminiscent of this organism's cytoplasmic dance through life's aqueous substrate. Lack of control terrifies the host, who remembers this moment with a sensation that makes its flesh tremble, wading through painful memories that feed on a part of the body deeper than biology. It pauses before a door, sucks in a lungful of air, and enters a dim room, the light soft and comfortable, closer to my own dark home. Other humans clad in white snap to attention as the alpha predator stalks toward the daughter human, lying dormant. The soft mate is here too, sitting beside daughter human and glancing up at the host through bloody eyes while emitting a repetitive, melodic wheeze. Daughter human does not resemble the previous image haunting the host's delirious wanderings through the cave, flesh hanging from withering bones. What is bone? It stirs, reaches a hand up, and touches the host's appendage. The host opens its face gash, showing all of its teeth, but the gesture does not contain any of the joy meant to accompany it. Are we going home soon? The host chews itself, struggles to find the correct grunts and sticks with moving its self-projector up and down. Daughter human cracks its face gash and offers a similar gesture to the host's, who brushes an appendage across the fur atop its head before turning to one of the betas clad in white, the alpha beta. Update me. The alpha beta shakes its self-projector from side to side, flashing a look that communicates the expectation of being devoured. The bacteriophage cultures we've used so far have been ineffective at fighting the virus. Even worse, they're starting to go after her immune system. The exchange causes something within the host to drop, a weight of helplessness that shifts into a gnawing from the inside out, a tearing at the deepest part of its being. Then, the mate rises, looks at the host with a predatory menace. We need to talk, it grunts. The host closes the windows to itself, heaves air, but something gives internally. This must be finished, it thinks. Turns to the mate and gestures to the hallway, follows the mate out. This needs to stop. She's miserable. Because she's sick. The host growls at the mate over this breach in order. She wants to go home. I'm trying to make sure she gets to do that she gets to stay home. What would a few bad increments of time be compared to the longer increments daughter human would have when the host succeeded at finding a cure? They could stomach being eaten alive for this if it meant she would live. Nothing is working. Why can't we just let her be a child? What are you saying? The mate has resigned itself to its offspring's senescence, and the host wants to hear it said aloud, so the mate can hear its own weakness. We need to accept. We need to make her comfortable and happy for what time she has left. Bracing for the stabbing suggestion does nothing to dull its pain for the host. Action potential lights up nerve clusters that push something prickly through this organism, flinging me into the realm of becoming I. And I understand. The host believed I could save the daughter human. Rather, it thought it could by using me, stillborn within a domain of objects. I still do not comprehend its fixation on cellular ejecta in a moment that has already occurred. Why not simply replicate once more? Have the daughter human split into daughter, human. Daughter, human. The host forges its hurt into anger and glares at its mate, imagines crushing it until life seeps wherever human selves go, once the body can no longer contain the ghost within the delicious gray matter. 3. Senescence. Pressure clamps around one of the host's appendages while a faint, rhythmic beep issues from somewhere above and behind, mingling with the nearby cacophony of human voices. The mate sits in an armchair, gazing out the window while a column of sunlight falls across it, sliding over shells full of cotton balls and latex gloves. The host comes to the realization it is in the hospital. But how did it arrive? It can no longer distinguish between past and present, but it does not remember this. The mate turns to face the host, but before it can say anything, a dull thud comes from the door and another human strolls in without waiting. Light streams in and stabs at the host's eyes, causing its head to throb. It launches up in excitement, but the stiffness in its neck radiates pain down its quivering throat and shoulders. Where are we? The doctor glances at the mate and then back to the host, checks the paper in her hands. One of the biotech firm's centers near Mount Shasta. Do you recall what happened to bring you here? Concern flashes across the doctor's face, and it tilts its head. Where's my team? The host asks. You'll have to speak with someone else for that, Mr. Hatch. I just work at the hospital. Now, do you know what landed you here? The host searches its mind and thinks back to the arrival at the area formerly known as Crater Lake, fish carcasses rotting beneath an overbearing sun. So many coat the parched lake bed, its team has to use them as a walkable mucus membrane down the slope to the cave. It takes a half an hour to reach the bottom, during which it's observe the waste disposal units weaving in and out of the trees surrounding the crater's lip. A third of them lie on their sides, tangled root balls clumped with dirt and exposed to the temperate air. Those still standing bend away from the point of eruption. The descent comes back too, collecting soil and water samples, slipping on slick andesite rock and smashing its head. Abduction by the underground river, which brought it to me like the fat pink strip lolling about its mouth brings food to its belly. The host takes the world in with skepticism. How can it trust a world without that is projected from within when it can no longer distinguish between past, present, and hallucination? The host expels air through its face gash. I was surveying a cave in Pandora Crater, trying to find microbial life. I hit my head. Got lost. Your team found you. 3 days later, pretty delirious. There's minor swelling in your brain and some bruising. It's likely you have a concussion as well. The host frowns. Do those things cause hallucinations? I saw things. Felt them too. It already knows the answer, but perhaps a doctor can put its mind at ease, help determine whether this is all real or not. That's certainly possible. Malnourishment, head trauma, lack of light and isolation, a perfect storm for hallucination. What else did the scans find? Nothing else? That's it? That's it? No presence? I'm not sure what you mean. She takes a few notes on her chart, but tell me more. We can add it to the things to investigate during your observational stay. The host grins at her. Just a joke. If this is real, it does not want to say anything that will delay it from getting back out there, continuing its research. The doctor frowns and shrugs, must think these symptoms are the continued effect of its condition. I'll leave you to rest then. Families help the healing process. It strolls from the room. Didn't think you'd make it. The mate rises from its chair, disappointment percolating in its voice. It can only be more inebriating if the host mainlined it through the IV in its arm. The image from before fades as the mate comes up next to its hospital bed. Instead, it thinks back to the dead fish of Pandora Crater, imagining that it is one of them while the mate is a buzzard on a nearby tree, ready to feast on plentiful carcasses. It recalls its own recollection of the putrid amines degrading in the fish, in it, same as the ones in its once love-struck brain. If its decayed love had a scent, that would be it. The host laughs a dry heave that makes it cough, and its head throb. The mate's presence, that feeling of volatility, convinces it that this is home. Sorry to disappoint you. The corners of the mate's mouth twitches, and it lets a moment to pass. Did you at least find what you were looking for in that cave? Despite everything between itses, the mate was once a person the host confided in. Something I'm still not sure how to explain. Now I don't even know whether it was real. The mate tenses. Is that what all that was about? Motions toward the door, and the host nods. And what did this present want? The host ponders the question. Food. The mate's voice takes on an unexpected gentleness, comforting and sinister at once. Maybe you should just let it go. Its face melts like tar. The body follows until it's a recognizable mass on the floor. A tangled organism of skin, hair, and bones gropes up the bed, using countless whip-like appendages. The host watches in horror, too stunned to move, as they flail toward it. Its mate organism arrives just as it thinks to run. But by then, it's too late. The mate organism slithers up its body until it has enveloped it. Movements are soft, as if, even in its violence, this is an act of compassion. Someone taking the courage to end a relationship that should end. Devour what should be eaten. It coos, voice reverberating through its. Let it go. The sensations fade as the ghost departs, but the host remains somehow. I continue my scooping, scraping, excavations, and feel an unfamiliar swelling. I am sated. I am ghosting, too. Fear runs through me, but there is no immediate predator to trigger the sensation. Only the shadow of something's shadow looming backward across the future. That which becomes, in doing so, becomes capable of unbecoming. Before then, I retract the pseudopodia, dividing the nucleus in two and replicate the self so that I may live on as others. My daughter organisms separate, containing a reflection of the ghost I became during my time with the human. While my ghost follows the host to wherever it is we go, they return to the interminable time without me. What are your thoughts on the story? You can go to our socials and contact us there, or you can go to the About Us page on our Clarkesworld Magazine website. That is Clark with an E. Thank you so much for joining us this March for all these wonderful stories. We do hope you can come back and join us again in April. Until then, my dear listener, I bid you a very fond and hopefully very temporary farewell.